Hi, welcome. I'm Sarah D.
I'm Dr. D.
And this is Economic Conversation number 109, right?
I don't
109, I believe it's 109.
Wow, that's a lot of fingers.
It is a lot of fingers, and we're going to
We
continue.
only got one more and then I'm no longer capable to count them.
I know. What are we going to do?
Don't know. I'll have to take my shoes off.
Well, anyway, we've been talking about kind of the same thing. Obviously economics, and the reason we do is because he's an economist. And
Sorry.
he knows about that. And this time we're going to continue on the vein of the gas prices right now with the things that are going on in the world and the way we've been affected by it. Your turn.
Oh, yes, we have been affected by gas prices. I don't like up at the pump. It's expensive.
But when we did this last time, you did say something that I thought was interesting. You said, see that person ahead of us? They only put in maybe 4 gallons. And that's going to cause the same kind of shortage similar to the toilet paper shortage. Is that accurate?
Yeah, on average, Americans, some have a full tank and some have an empty tank. And on average, we probably have about half a tank of gas amongst all of our vehicles. But now that we're worried about the gas prices going up, every time we get down a little bit, we sneak into the gas station and we top off the tank and we keep the tanks full. So now all of the gasoline that would have been in storage at the gas station is now sitting in storage in
People's
millions of cars.
Thankfully not in their basements.
Not in their basements,
Also,
no, but if you have 4 extra gallons on average in every car and you have 1 million cars, that's 4 million gallons of gasoline that is no longer out there to be sold. Now, we can only do that for about a month you can do that, and then all of a sudden you're only driving as much as you're driving, so the flow gets back to normal. But what happens, you put a huge surge on the flow at the front end, and it's a flow that
causes the gas prices to go up?
Well, if we've got a really tuned system where the companies are paying attention to how much gasoline flows out of the company and how much they need to flow in, and the big tanker trucks are on a delivery schedule, and the delivery schedule is set to the kind of usage that is normal. All of a sudden we have this big surge in usage, and the delivery system isn't going to keep up with it. And so you're more likely to have problems at gas stations because of it.
And actually this time...
But it's only a short period, that will compress only into like a month or so, and then that problem evaporates because we've all got our tanks topped off, and we're only burning gas as fast as we burn it.
Last week people weren't honking, but this week they were.
This week they were getting angry. Yes, they were honking in the line.
So we're getting more ramped up emotionally.
Yes.
And it makes sense, but sometimes we're hoping that if you can understand what's going on underlying, and that it's going to even out.
Yeah. And
it's not going to be very unlikely to be like in the 70s when gas prices were a half hour of your labor time.
Yeah, so that's the thing that everybody talks about, right? So everybody, when we talk about our fears, we and the news media is really good at spiking our fears.
No.
It makes us want to watch. It's really good, right? So, there's something exciting on TV.
Who needs it?
Right.
Horror movie, right?
So they all harken back to the 1970s, and they talk about the oil embargo of OPEC in the 70s and the gas lines in the 70s. And they also talk about something called stagflation from the 70s.
So may I ask you a question? So the gas lines, I remember gas lines because we were aware of that at that point. We were alive. Of course we were. We're not dead.
I
now.
wasn't.
So anyway.
Okay, maybe I was.
The gas lines were there because, the gas lines we're having now aren't the reason the gas lines had then.
No.
So what's the difference?
Right now the gas lines are fear.
Okay.
Right, so right now the gas lines are due to fear. So we're all going into the gas station and topping off our tanks.
Okay.
And so there's more flow of customers into the gas station than they were designed to take. So it's more flow than normal.
Right.
And therefore you're going to have more lining up at the gas stations because you just have higher flow.
And that flow means there's more pressure.
Right. So there's more gasoline exiting out of the gas station, and in order to convince an extra delivery of gasoline to a gas station, you have to talk a tanker truck driver into coming and delivering gasoline, and so they have to make an extra gasoline run in order to fill up your local gas station, and that might be above and beyond what they're used to doing, so it's like they have to get overtime for it. So it makes gas more expensive just to deliver, right?
Okay.
Just on that delivery side because of the surge. So you have that's going to have upward pressure on gasoline prices. The other things we've already talked about that have the upward pressure on fear and all of these things, and the increase in the price of the component parts to make gasoline. So we've already talked about these upward pressures. We already talked about the fear pressure that people wanting to buy gasoline to make sure that to hoard gasoline in their gas tanks because they're afraid of something bad happening in the future. So we've already talked about that. It's going to put upward pressure on gas prices.
And so if we were talking about, say, the minimum wage, okay, so the minimum wage is like $15 an hour?
Yeah, let's just say that's a good number.
And so in order for it to be, as far as priced similarly to or the same as in the 70s, it would have to, because the 70s it went
So
up.
yeah, you and I remember a minimum wage of about $2.35 an hour.
Yes.
Right, so that was the minimum wage, and we also remember a gas price that was about $1.70.
Yep.
Right, so let's just say
It
let's
went up
make
to
it.
two,
Yeah, but let's just make it easy and say that we remember a gas price of or a gallon of gas cost you a half hour of minimum wage work.
Right.
Right, and so for gas to cost a half hour of minimum wage work today, it would have to be $7.50. So it's way cheaper now than it was back then.
Comparatively.
Compared to your work, right?
Right.
Affordability.
And
right?
not that we want to be paying more, but there are reasons, and it's not as bad as that. And the reason that was that way wasn't just because there was a shock. It had to do with legislation.
Oh, it had to do with all sorts of things, right?
Started with Jimmy Carter, you said?
Well, no, it actually started with Richard Nixon.
I mean, Nixon. That's right. Actually,
Richard Nixon.
Carter,
Yeah.
Nixon.
Carter, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan. All of them.
So Nixon was in 6th grade. I remember doing a cheer for that. Yep.
So it's
He won at our school, by the way.
It started with Richard Nixon, and there were lots of things happened in the 70s. So to say that the 70s are going to reemerge today means that we have to have a confluence of events that is similar to what happened in the 70s. And it's very, very unlikely that we're going to have that total confluence of events.
Is that because we possibly might have learned something from the
So it could be that we learned
hope
something
that.
from the mistakes from the 70s, but let's just start with the first one. So you hear people talk about the gold standard.
Yes.
Okay, so the gold standard is the beginning of the problem.
Okay. Of the gas lines. And everything.
Yes, it's the beginning of the problem.
Okay.
So let's just say after World War II, the world was in a bad place.
Yeah.
People were having a hard time. The United States wasn't, because we didn't get bombed out of existence, but all of Europe did get bombed out of existence, and a lot of Asia got bombed out of existence, and right, so we were the only ones producing anything. So it was actually a really good time for us. Like, it's like, ooh, we can sell to everybody, and they can't buy it, but we can sell to everybody, and we have no competition because all of our competition got blown up. Right, so we can talk about that, and we can talk about the good old days when all the rest of the world was blown up and we were so great. Okay, it's a sad way to think about it, but that's the way it was. And as the economies, so in order to stabilize the economies, the idea is that we have to be able to engage in international trade. So if you're a country and I'm a country, you have Sarah D money, and I have Dr. D money.
Yep.
And so if I'm a factory in Dr. D land, and I'm making stuff and I want to sell it to Sarah D, Sarah D doesn't have Dr. D money.
Not yet. No.
None. You don't print it. You don't use it. You don't have Dr. D money.
But I'm going to get some in this story.
No, you aren't.
Oh.
You don't need it.
Okay. I only need Sarah D money.
You only need Sarah D money. And so I give you my factory made thing, and you pay in Sarah D money. But my workers don't want Sarah D money.
No, they want Dr. D money.
They want Dr. D money. So
that's the country you're in.
That's the country I'm in. So there has to be an agreement, right? So we decided that there had to be an agreement between how many Dr. D monies and Sarah D monies came together, right? So maybe 2 Sarah D monies made 1 Dr. D money, or maybe 3 Dr. D monies made 1 Sarah D money. We had to come to an agreement. And so we set up this whole line of agreements where the US dollar was kind of the benchmark. And it was a benchmark set on the value of gold. So let's just say the dollar, it was determined that a dollar was worth, $40 were worth an ounce of gold.
Okay.
So let's just say that's what it was. Or $40 bought an ounce of gold. And so for every $40 out there, sitting in Fort Knox, there was supposed to be
an ounce of gold.
An ounce of gold, right? And so technically, Sarah D would give Dr. D's factory some Sarah D money, and Dr. D would take that Sarah D money to Sarah D's central bank, and the central bank in Sarah D land would give however much gold that Sarah D money was worth to Dr. D, and Dr. D put it in the central bank of
Dr. D land.
Dr. D land, and Dr. D printed up some more money, and that's how the factory got the money, right? That's how it worked. And so that's called a fixed exchange rate with a gold standard. It's fundamentally the way it works. Okay. What's the price of gold? Oh, $40 an ounce. Why? Because the government said so. That's just what it was.
Okay.
End of story.
It had nothing to do with supply and demand?
Nope. And now,
it's arbitrary.
Arbitrary. And now here's the deal. We decided that there are so many Sarah D dollars to a Dr. D dollar, and therefore we could just trade the gold easily, and it was easy to be, the gold could be easily traded
because it stayed constant. Sarah D and Dr. D money.
And that was and what we did was we made this agreement.
Okay.
We made this agreement. That's what it was called. This agreement was called the Bretton Woods Accords.
Bretton Woods Accords.
Yeah, and it set so that companies could trade with foreign countries and know how much they were getting. Because foreign countries pay in foreign country money. Mm-hmm. But my workers want to be paid in Dr. D money.
Right.
And so we set up this Bretton Woods thing. And the problem is that when there's very little foreign trade going on, not a problem, right? There's just a little bit of gold. We play around with it. We shift it back and forth.
We would really ship the gold back and forth?
Well, we stopped shipping it back and forth, and we put it in piles in a big vault. So we'd take stuff off of the U.S. pile and we'd move it to the China pile or whatever, right? And so it all took place inside the central banks, and they just shifted gold around on piles. And we trusted each other because we all loved each other. High fives. That was the system. And that was exactly what the system was. The problem is that when trade gets big, then all of a sudden maybe England is buying a lot of our stuff, but we're buying very little of their stuff. So their gold pile is slowly getting moved all over to us, and they're running out of gold, and they can't print up any more England money. And so we've got to go in and we go, oh, this isn't working right. So we've got to rechange.
What gold is valued at?
How many? In some sense, we recalibrate how much gold is in an English thing. In English money or in Sarah D money. And we recalibrate it, and we have a big meeting, and we agree again.
More gentle.
And the reason that we do this is because really what we want to do is facilitate trade both ways, and we want the trade to be fairly balanced, and so we don't want gold to be shipped from one place to another. We want it to kind of just all stay normal so that we can do what we do inside our country, because the money we print up is really for what we do in our country, and if it's all based on how big our pile of gold is, then we can print less money or more money or whatever it is. And it starts to cause problems. So, for example, if the United States has more gold and prints more money, we get more inflation.
Say that one more time.
If the United States gets more gold and we print more money, then we just get more inflation.
Oh, because the amount of money you have is going to match with the amount of goods you have. We
Oh,
talked about that one.
yeah, we talked about that. Now, if I just arbitrarily have more money because the gold standard says I have more money, so now we've got to play around with this. How does the central bank make sure that that stuff doesn't cause inflation and all these kinds of things that happen? So how do we control that? Well, we decided that this fixed currency exchange system wasn't working well. And so in 71, Richard Nixon and the rest of the countries kind of said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And we're going to have what's called a floating currency. So think of it this way. Instead of having these piles of gold that switch around between the countries, so I sell you, Dr. D sells some stuff to Sarah D, and I get a pile of Sarah D money. And Sarah D sells Dr. D a certain amount of Sarah D stuff, and she gets a pile of Dr. D money. And at the end of the year, they look at it and they go, oh, these piles switch back and forth. That's the exchange rate.
So I think I remember you telling me this a long time ago. So say if at the end of the year you had 10 Sarah D money and I had 20 Dr. D money, then 20 Dr. D money and 10 Sarah D money would be equal.
Yes, exactly.
So it was floating, and one time a year it was chosen.
Well, technically it clears every day, but
Okay,
it's
but
easier to say one time a year. So one time a year we clear it. Now here's the problem, right? So if I'm the factory owner, I have to know what the clearing price is of the money so that I know what to charge Sarah D. And Sarah D money. And Sarah D has to know what the closing price of dollars is going to, Dr. D's money is going to be in order to sell her factory stuff to me, to know what the price needs to be so that they can profit on it and they can pay their workers at the end of the day. Because if I guess wrong, I don't get enough Dr. D money to pay my workers and they get angry with me and chase me with pitchforks and kill me. Dead. Right? It's a bad thing, right? And so we moved to this floating exchange rate, and now all of the risk on trade falls back onto the companies. It's no longer on the country. The country wasn't protecting the dollars, and so the risk wasn't being borne up in inflation or deflation, depending upon what it is. And so in 1971, we moved over to this new system.
Oh, to the brat, whatever.
Pure fiat money.
Sounds like a car.
Yes.
But
Money based on small Italian cars.
Yeah.
Okay, no. Fiat means law. It is money by law. That's all it is.
So that's
not backed by anything.
That's the legal tender that we have on our dollar bills.
Currently, it is fiat money. It's not worth any gold. I mean, you can buy gold with it, but it's not. There isn't a set amount of gold that a dollar is worth or any of that kind of stuff. And then not a set of gold that a pound sterling is worth. It's not even worth a pound of sterling silver, right? Where it's name pound sterling. Okay. The name of it was sterling is pure silver.
Yeah, sterling silver.
So it was based on an amount of silver.
Ha ha ha.
A pound.
Okay, we'll talk about it after.
It's fun. It's fun and exciting. Anyway, so that's the first thing. And so now all of our mechanisms for understanding how the economy works are messed up because we've moved to a completely new international finance system.
So this is in the 70s. When it
starts in 71.
Yeah.
Starts in 71. And we start having something called inflation coupled with a recession.
Right.
And there's huge price changes. The inflation is bad. And so the first pure communist president of the United States, Richard Nixon, I know he claims he's not. He's a good Republican and all, but he was a pure communist. He decides what he's going to do is the government, knows what the right prices for things ought to be. So they set wage and price controls.
Wage and price controls.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
So the government didn't allow the market to do what the market does with the pressure. It said, nope, we're gonna
do it because we're smarter than the market.
Right.
And like Stalin. Stalin would have been proud.
Yep. And so the result was the rationing of gas.
Well, at the end result, yes, right. So we have wage and price controls, which means that we're going to control the price of things. In particular, we control the price of crude oil sold in the United States.
We control the price of crude oil?
Yes, 19 minutes and 50 some seconds.
I didn't ask. I was able to see. Thank you. So you just said something.
Yeah, so we control the price of crude oil sold in the United States. Now, let's just say that we control the price of crude oil in the United States. Let's just say you can sell oil in the United States for $40 a barrel or $80 a barrel, or it doesn't matter what number it is.
Is that OPEC?
No, this is even before OPEC. Right? So we control the price of oil. You can only sell it for so much a barrel. Oh, if you sell it in the United States, if you pump it and sell it in the United States, you can only sell it for this capped price.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
But
so let's say, yeah, okay.
if you pump it somewhere else and sell it somewhere else, you can charge
Sell it for more.
whatever the market price happens to be.
Yeah, whatever the market price is.
So all of a sudden, the United States stops pumping oil. Right? So all of you that want to control the price of gasoline and oil, what that means is that you will have no gas. That's what it will cause.
So the U.S. stopped pumping. Oh, they stopped pumping oil because they couldn't afford to.
Yeah, because it was better to pump Saudi oil and ship it to England than it was to pump Texas oil and ship it to.
Wait. You said we stopped pumping oil.
Yeah, we did.
Or did you say we started pumping oil?
We
sold it
American
somewhere
companies.
else? I know, but then we sold to other countries.
Yes.
So we didn't stop pumping oil. We stopped.
So we pumped
pumping
less
it
and
here.
sold less here. Yes.
Here, yeah, not
Yes.
just less overall.
But the same companies that are pumping it are the ones that are pumping it in Saudi Arabia, and the ones that are pumping it in Iran, and they're the ones that are all of them are the same, right? Exxon. Right. That's all, well, Esso back then, but Exxon.
Yeah, no,
Right. So the question is, if I'm not allowed to profit on the oil that I pump in the United States, but I am allowed to profit on the oil that I pump in Saudi Arabia.
If you pump it in the United States, you have that, what did you call it?
Price ceiling.
The price ceiling. And yeah, there was another name you called it earlier. I mean, not here.
Control. Price control.
Yeah, there was a cool word, but I don't remember.
I lost my cool word. So anyway, so that's a problem. And guess what happened also in the same time frame?
Pray tell what?
Well, so we were allied with a country that is called Israel.
Oh, that's right.
And there happened to be a nasty war, and we supported Israel, and all the rest of the Middle East was pissed at us. Mm-hmm. And this conglomeration of oil countries that had oil said, well, we're not selling it in the U.S. This conglomeration was called OPEC. Okay. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. That's what OPEC stands for.
Okay.
So they said, well, we're going to embargo oil. We won't sell oil to Americans.
Which is what we're doing with... No, we're not going to buy oil from America.
Yeah, it's the other side of it, but it's the same idea. Okay, so here we go. So that's really cool. So now we can't get oil. We cannot get as much oil. We can get it through the back door, right? We all know that. But we can't get it directly from there. So, but we've also stopped producing oil.
Because we put sanctions on our production.
Yes.
The price ceiling.
Yes. So all of a sudden...
So these two things come together.
These things come together not well, right? We don't allow the market to adjust in the United States, and we have another constriction. We can't get foreign oil as much anymore. So prices would skyrocket, but they can't because we put wage and price controls on gasoline.
Right.
So now you can't sell it either.
You can't sell it because if you pump it, you have to.
You're going to lose money on it.
Right.
And we don't make enough here in the United States because we stopped pumping it because we told them, oh, we're going to punish you if you pump oil in the United States.
The government told them.
Yeah, the government told American companies will punish you. Mm-hmm. They didn't say that exactly. They said, here, we're going to charge you a huge tax, and here we're going to control what price you can sell it for.
But essentially,
what they said is don't pump oil in the United States.
Right.
I mean, that's not the words they used, but that's what they said.
Well, yeah.
With their actions.
Yes.
Oh, wait, so there we go. And so all of a sudden there's no gasoline in the United States. And the price can't go up.
But people still need gas. But the price did go up.
It went up a little bit.
It went up to like 2 something.
Yeah.
I remember gas prices at 25 cents.
Yeah.
gallon.
No, you had, yeah, you were lucky. You still remember some of those good old days. I remember buying gas at 67 cents, but that's back when
Good memory.
yeah, she's got a better memory than me. I'm just way old. So anyway, so that's what caused the gas lines, right? This all government intervention into the marketplace, because we had a similar problem in 2000.
That's what caused the gas lines, but also the gas lines were caused because they wouldn't let people, it went by your...
Yeah, it went by your license plate, but it went by your license plate in order to, because we wouldn't let prices regulate the marketplace.
Yeah, so we had to regulate the purchase of it, and if you had the odd, you got to go on Monday.
Yes, it was like you can only buy one roll of toilet paper. That's all it was. It was you can buy one roll of toilet paper, or you can buy 2 gallons of gas, but that's it. Right, that's all you can. You can't get more than 2 gallons, right? So it was just controls. It was like wartime controls. It was the dumbest thing ever, right? And oh, by the way, which presidents did that? Let's see. There was this president who thought he was a big anti-communist, Richard Nixon, who was a big communist. Then there was his follow-on, which was Gerald Ford, and Gerald Ford didn't change it. And then there was this follow-on called Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter said, let the good times roll. And they got really bad under Jimmy Carter. And then there was this guy, Ronald Reagan, who said, well, we're gonna get rid of these price controls because they're like dumber than crap. And so finally he did, I think in his second term, maybe in his first term, I don't know exactly when, but he finally got rid of all of that stuff and things smoothed out. And then we had another really big punch in the face under George W. Bush, where there was this huge problem with oil and gas because, guess what?
I'm just listening.
We invaded Iraq, which is a huge producer of oil.
Right.
We pissed off the Iranians and we shut them down. And so major oil producers go away, but we don't put wage and price controls on. And I remember the price of gas in that time getting up to about $5.25 a gallon. I didn't drive a lot, but I had all the gas I needed. Even though we had the same kind of embargo problems, just not the same kind of stupid solutions. Let the market take care of it. And what we've got going on now is exactly the same thing. As soon as you start hearing people say, what we need to do is control the profits that the oil companies make, remember, that's just secret talk for you want to be in a long gas line and you only want to get gas every other day.
And you want it to last for a long time.
And you want it to last for a long time.
Whatever, which is perhaps what it's going to do right now, you think, because we're letting the market take care of it.
As long as you let the market take care of it, the market will do a good job of rebalancing things.
Because of the pressure and the balancing.
And exactly. I'll decide that I'll go to church and come back, but that's all I'm going to do on Sunday.
No joyrides.
No joyrides, right? And so joyrides go down, but guess what? No joyrides, because it's too expensive to buy the gas, is better than no gas. And so, just leave it alone.
And so in economics, they call that the unseen hand. Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely. The unseen hand balances things out very nicely. The invisible hand.
Oh, the invisible hand.
Balances things out really nicely. The government, which is kind of like the iron fist.
We can see that.
We can see it, and it's pretty clumsy.
And we don't necessarily understand, well, I certainly don't. Maybe you do. Obviously you do. But we don't necessarily understand what the unseen hand is doing. But that's pretty normal for the unseen hand, if you get my drift.
So as long as we don't punish oil companies for changing prices to meet the flow of gas and oil, as long as we don't punish them for it, we will not revisit the 70s. As soon as we decide it's unfair and that for fairness reasons we need everybody to be in a gas line.
Because that would be the result.
That would be the result. Everybody's in a gas line.
Unintended consequences.
It's the consequence, yeah. So we don't have to worry about the 70s unless, of course, we start pushing legislation that controls prices of gasoline and crude oil in the United States.
So eventually, like that balloon you talked about last week, it's going to settle, and
Yep.
it will settle definitely higher than the $2 that we've been having before, but it won't settle at half of minimum wage.
It'll settle around, I don't know. I'm guessing it'll settle around $4, which is where it would have been.
But right now
without
it's
COVID.
above 4. So
right now it's above 4, yeah.
It's above 4.
But my guess is it would settle at around $4, maybe a little less. I don't know, but I mean, we got gas and oil industry people that can tell me really where it will be. But my guess is here in New York, before COVID, we were paying close to $4 a gallon. My guess is that's exactly where we'd go back to.
And no more than 5. That's what I would say.
Yeah, 5 was a rare spike upwards.
Yeah.
It was a rare spike upwards, and it took a confluence of events.
So
No 70s.
That made no 70s, and that made, I kind of understood that pretty well, and I'm going to assume you understood it very well. And we hope that this little conversation about gas prices and the possible fear that it's going to be as much as it was in the 70s is resolved in your mind in case it wasn't, because even though it seems and appears to be the same, it is not the same.
It is not the same.
There are a lot of different things that have happened. And so as long as we can not vote in
as long as we don't
constraints on the market and let the invisible hand do its work, we're set up. We just have to have faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would like to thank you for joining me and Dr. D in this conversation. We've had a pretty good time. I enjoy listening. I didn't comment too much to get too confused. And we would like to, and I encourage you to make it I'm doing it backwards, to make it a great day. I'm Sarah D.
I'm Dr. D. Nameste.